about life is that it, by definition, isn't static. Seasons change, locations change, routines change. Oh, and did I forget to mention we change? And with all of these moving parts, our planning systems need to be upgraded too. Welcome back to Focus and Flow. This is a place for planning and bullet journal inspiration. I am Catherine, and I'm so glad to be back for a new video. Did you miss me in April? In this video, you'll see how I set up my weekly spread for an exciting new work schedule. With a career in nursing, I have worked any and every shift imaginable. Well, for the last several years, I've enjoyed pretty typical office hours, and just last month, though my job hasn't changed, my hours certainly have. I have tried a couple different spreads for weeklies, and I found that I really wanted to keep my time blocking method, but I also needed to expand the hours that it kept track of. With only so much space on the page, I kind of felt at a loss for how I would do this, and I ended up just finally sitting down with my pencil and my ruler to sketch it out. One thing I did not want to sacrifice in doing this was the handful of other items that I typically will have on my weekly view. This includes space for appointments, for to-dos, for routines, and my meal plan. I did cut the delineation for each day of the week, as I already know which spaces for Monday and Tuesday and so forth. And I left some space to the side as well to tackle my weekend planning at the tail end of the spread because I was still kind of feeling in this experimental phase and I just wanted to work everything else out. As of this summer, I'll have been using the bullet journal system for 10 whole years. Yeah. Since starting this practice, I have really had my life changed, and I find having a personalized way of planning to be optimal for me. Part of the point of using this method is the ability we have to pivot at any given time and adopt. You can modify, or you can just even abandon the types of spreads that we use. In 10 years, I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen jobs, locations, relationships, personal goals. All of it has shifted, and my needs have shifted for what my planning looks like. So it stands to reason that planning tools need to be updated with a bit of a new operating system from time to time to reflect the new needs that we have in our lives. What I've settled on here is an extended but modified version of my favorite weekly time blocking system. And instead of keeping all of the hours pretty uniform at 2 rows deep, I've shortened some to only 1 row. And this lets me note the things I want to do in those slots. It gives me enough room for 2 or more tasks if necessary. And really, with how this ended up, I actually rarely need 2 rows for each hour. So next week, I think I might make all of the hours uniformly 1 row. I just mentally was not there this time. It just seemed a little too tight to constrict myself into this very, very small space. But I think, again, looking at how the final product ended up being, I actually don't need that much space, so the elongated days are fine. I will just modify the amount of room that I allot to each hour. Carrying over the items from my monthly, my level 10 life, and my Launchpad are, of course, an important part of my layout. This is, after all, how I keep my household and my personal well-being on track, not to mention working toward my goals. When I'm setting up my monthly spread, I will curate a task list of things that I want to focus on and bring to fruition through the course of the month. And the weekly is my time to pull that over into reality. To make them concrete, I need to have a space for those to-dos and those goals to live and be born. And to me, this is really the magic of bullet journaling and why I love it so much, because it really feels like such a powerful tool of creating your reality. Speaking of creating reality, I know many people use a level 10 life assessment on an annual, quarterly, or a monthly basis. Over the years, I have whittled mine down to monthly, but I'll go you one further. I actually delegate each week to one of the low scoring categories. So for this week, I have my overall health. And with a new work schedule comes earlier wake-up times, an overall shift in my daily schedule. So sleep is a major thing that I really want to focus on this week. By noting it on my monthly page, I'm keeping it visible and top of mind. My Fly Lady section is where I refer to my Launchpad to know exactly what area of my home I'm going to give a little extra attention. This might sound confusing, but it's actually very simple. The second week of the month means it's time to work in the living room. I give a little thought to the things in this area that need tidying, fixing, or otherwise managing, and I note that down here. This week, it looks like fixing a broken drawer in my altar space, decluttering, and dropping off donations. I also refer to that same Launchpad to take note of things that I might need to do on a quarterly or monthly or even annual basis that I can assign for myself at this time. So that means right now, doing a home pedicure, coloring my hair, and planning my next month. I know some people meal plan in a very precise way, deciding ahead of time that on Monday they'll have tacos and on Tuesday they'll have pasta and so forth. But for me, I just need to note down the meals that sound good and that correlate with what I currently have in my kitchen. Namely, meals that will use items that are perishable or that are recommended by my dietitian. I, as a mostly vegetarian individual, really need to focus on my protein intake, so I will usually kind of center my meals around what kind of optimization of protein I can get going for the day. So on any day, I will reference this list and see what I have available to me, see what I'm really feeling for that day, or maybe the avocado is ripe and it's time to have tacos. I will then just take it from there. So I just kind of make this sub list for myself that I can reference, but it's still pretty loosey-goosey, and it allows me to have some variability because I love to eat based on mood. And now it's time for the laptop. Off camera, I am referencing my work calendar, and this tells me when I have meetings and what bundles are due. Planning is a whole other process for that, but let's just say that I reference this like I would any other collection in my bullet journal. So the first thing I do in my time blocking is to note down the items that are more or less set in place. So if, for instance, I have a presentation at 10 a.m. on Thursday, I need to make sure that that's really all I have in place for that space of time. I know I won't be doing anything else. The next thing I do is anchor my week by assigning when exactly I'm going to be doing a particular thing, which is due that day. I realize that not everyone has this flexibility or this need in their day-to-day, but this is what I find helpful in the current season of my life. One thing to keep in mind if you are going to be doing some planning like this is that there are daily flows to your energy level and your personal preference. If, for instance, I know that I am more inclined to sit and do quiet, focused work mid-morning, that is when I will schedule the majority of that type of work. I will typically feel more energized midday to early afternoon, and that is when I will usually plan my calls, which, to be honest, can be quite labor intensive for this INFJ. And by the late afternoon or evening, I am usually in an absolute dire need to jump around and move my body. So that's when I plan to take my yoga practice or go to the gym or meet up with a friend to go walking, etc. So there are other items that I will note down and make space for here, and some tasks are not as closely time bound, and I just know that I'll be fitting them in to some free space that I will find during the week. One thing you'll notice about my time blocks is that I, number one, do it in pencil, and number two, I like to leave some blank space. The first half of my week is typically fuller because I know my energy naturally wanes a little towards Thursday and Friday, and there's a good chance that new items will pop up and need tending to for that time. Those items require space, and I like to keep it in pencil because I can and do move some of these tasks around. It depends on need. If, for instance, I get a booking to see a client on Wednesday at 6, and on Wednesday at 6 I have blocked out time for the gym, I know that I can shift that around and maybe go to the gym. So the whole reason for this new weekly layout is that I'm working 4 days a week now instead of 5. So I have this Tuesday off. As a result, I'm scheduling some things like attending a morning yoga class and a volunteer shift with a local cat rescue. I'm putting them on that day for myself. This also gives me a wonderful way to work on those things that otherwise might get squeezed out during the week, pushing them into the weekend or just into oblivion where they don't happen at all. Since this week's Level 10 Life focus is health and well-being, and because I just like it, you can see that I'm noting here that I want to go for a walk at the nature center. I also have some space for running errands, for doing some things around my home, like those tasks that I had mentioned in the living room. I also have some project focus tasks, self-care items, etc. I realize that there is a lot packed into that day, and truth be told, I probably won't get to all of it, but I will get to definitely more than half, and to me, that's a success. As you can see here, I have actually sped up the video aspect of this because it does take some time, and even though this video is sped up and I have cut out certain bits, it's evident that I'm sitting here thinking quite a bit, and that is really part of the heart of this process, is that I get to sit and visualize my week, and this could be considered a luxury, sure. But to be honest, even if you take 15 minutes, you put a timer on your phone and you say, hey, I'm going to visualize my week day by day for this period of time, it is really going to help you to kind of mentally walk through everything that you might need to do. That way, when the week actually comes, you're not feeling overwhelmed and you already have visualized, okay, I already have this commitment on this day, and because of that I want to make sure that I'm not doing super intensive stuff on the other half of the day, or maybe I need to make sure that I get to bed early on this night so that the next morning I'm really up and running because I have this thing, instead of just sort of running behind and feeling overwhelmed. You are ready to go. So it doesn't necessarily have to take a full hour or more that sometimes us bullet journalers like to do. It really is more about giving time for yourself to visualize and kind of mentally walk through the time to come so that when you are there, you feel like you are prepared. If you notice, I am now taking some time to put in some reoccurring events for myself, as well as making sure that all of those little items that I have in all those cute little boxes, they all have a home in real time. And that's how I bring these visions that I have at the beginning of the month, that's how I bring them into fruition in the daily. So this is a very important part of the process. And again, I'm not going to hit every single one necessarily, but if I am able to write it down, give it some space, and I'm able to see it with my eyeballs, then it's much more likely to happen. You know what? I bet you didn't expect to see a salt shaker lid in this video. For the weekend, I really liked this template and I've used it for some time. I prefer not to time block for my weekends, but instead, weekends aren't so much about productivity or staying on a schedule. I just like to have a space for each day where I can create a small list of to-dos and reminders. And I have another section for things to be mindful of for the coming week. You could say that it's redundant, but I find it to be helpful to anticipate if, say, I have several appointments next week, or if I have a friend coming to visit. It lets me be aware that, hey, maybe I do really need to stay on task this week because next week is going to have its own challenges, or maybe next week there's a holiday that I need to somehow prepare for. So that really helps me to be prepared when it comes to the time further ahead. And I just used a different shape of stencil because I wanted some visual interest, and I am known for using some random things in my household as stencils, and I quite like the salt shaker lid, so there we go. Something I've been adding more into my spreads lately is more visual interest. Now, I do love drawing and doodling myself, but sometimes you just need a change, and I'm just in the mood for it. I also have an entire collection of tapes, stickers, markers, etc. that honestly just sit staring at me when I'm only using pen and pencil. You might find as well that when you have a journaling hobby that people will gift you supplies, and before you know it, you have so much to use and only so much time and only so much space. So I am just adding a little bit of color, a little bit of shadow, a tiny amount of stickers, just to give a very slight pop to the spread here. I wanted to highlight the weekend and my Tuesday, which are my days off, and I also just wanted to highlight the kind of banners that are the different subheadings throughout the spread. And that's it, my week in planning. I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope you took some inspiration from seeing how this system can always be modified to fit your needs. If you like this video, subscribe, like, and comment. Getting feedback on these videos helps me to stay motivated and to keep sharing my process. What do you think? Should I share my monthly April spread too? Oh my God, I know it's late. Okay, until then.